Wonderful. It is so good to be here with you today, talking about the future of human potential. It's an honor and a privilege to be part of Singularity University in South Africa again, the best Singularity Summit in the entire world. I hope everyone in the SU universe heard that. And this was a recent cover of Time magazine talking about our beautiful country, South Africa. Most amazing country from so many perspectives. And yet here we see on the cover of Time magazine, the world's most unequal country. And we've got this highway going down the middle here, and on the left-hand side, such abundance and affluence, and on the right-hand side, the opposite of that. And the question is how do you change that? And absolutely the wrong approach in my mind is to try and take money and wealth from the people on the left-hand side to give it to the people on the right-hand side, because we're just dividing up a pie, and it doesn't actually change the net sum of everything. What we really have to do is fully move that highway all the way to the right, and so that every single person is in affluence and abundance. Now the question is it possible? And I've been working for the last 25 years on this problem, and the answer I know to be true is that it's absolutely possible. If we think of the words of the great Albert Einstein, one of the greatest scientists in the world, who said that everything is a miracle or nothing is a miracle, and it's your choice. And that this is the most important decision that you ever make in your life. And it's not a choice you make once, it's a choice you make every single second of every day. Is what are you choosing to believe? Is this world abundant, fully infinite in possibilities, in that anything can happen? Or is it just same old, going through life, nothing's exciting, no real possibilities, everything's a challenge? And Einstein obviously took the path that everything is a miracle. And when we think about miracles, we have to think about this actual universe that we're part of that is infinite in size and expansion. We actually don't know the limit of the universe. It's got at least 2 trillion galaxies according to NASA. Every one of these galaxies has got on average 100 to 400 billion suns in it, stars and suns in it. In our galaxy, the Milky Way, we've got, you see different reports on it, up to 400 billion stars. Our sun is just one of those 100 to 400 billion stars. And yet we get so excited at the thought of Elon Musk taking people to Mars in a few years' time, the return to the moon happening soon, all the probes going out, and everything else that's going on in space. That's not even space. That's like just a few grains of sand on a beach in this infinite universe that we're living in. Now that is a miracle, what actually we're all part of. So talking of miracles, I'd say the first great miracle that happened to me in my life happened with my mother. This happened actually over 30 years ago. There she is on the right of this picture, and there's my oldest brother Mark, then David just next to my mother, and Greg on the left there. I'm in the back there, and then my little sister in front of my mom. And here we were as little lighties, growing up, best of friends. My mother comes home one day. She's been to see a cancer specialist, and she had been sick for a long time, absolutely thin as a stick, lines us all up, and she says, the doctor says I have only 3 months left to live. That was like a total death knell for all of our family. We were completely stunned to hear that news. Ended up staying up all night, all of us, crying with my mother. And my mother during the night said, I'm not going to die. I can't afford to die. I've got 5 children. I have to find another way. And she went into everything alternative under the sun. She went into something called macrobiotics, which is a natural way of eating with no preservatives, colorants, etc. She went into meditation just to deal with the stress of dying. If somebody tells you you're going to die from the fear, never mind what's going on in your body. Well, anyway, suffices to say, with everything my mother did, after 3 months, we were waiting for her to die, never died. 3 months and a day, 3 months and 2 days, kept going on 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. My mom was still very much alive and getting more alive by the day. And it's now about 33 years later. And 3 years ago, actually 4 years ago, my mom turned 80, which was incredible. So it's now 34 years after she had this death sentence, and was able to beat it through alternative methodologies. That was miracle number one for me. And it told me that not everything we think to be true is necessarily true, and that there's always ways of looking at life differently, thinking about life differently, and living life differently. I'd say miracle two happened for me around my own studies to become an actuary. I'm a qualified actuary through the Institute of Actuaries. I've now got 6 qualifications, which includes 2 honorary doctorates. But at the time that I was a student at Wits University, I was really struggling to understand what I was studying. I would go out partying every night with my friends. I'd come to class the next day, studying all the statistics and actuarial science, and had almost no clue of what the lecturer was talking about. And I ended up failing third year at Wits. I got 33 and 34 for the 2 main subjects. I redid them. I got 47 and 48. Wits pushed me through. I managed to get a job. I was very fortunate in an insurance company, scraped in, and I started to work every day and then study at night for the international actuarial exams through the Institute of Actuaries in London. And I was just tired the whole time, completely exhausted, and struggling to understand what all this stuff is about. People say that actuarial exams are the most difficult exams in the world. And so I went to go write in the first April of working, and I wrote 2 subjects, failed them. I went to write again in September. I failed them again. My professor at Wits said, "You'll never be an actuary. You don't have what it takes. You should have chosen something easy." This was actually just soon after the time that my mom actually ended up saving her own life. And she kept saying to me, "Why don't you try these things? How I live, why don't you try this diet? Why don't you try meditation?" Things like that. And I said, no, I don't do that rubbish. And I only eat 3 meals a day, and I don't do things like meditation, and that's weird, and all of this kind of thing. And anyway, after having failed again the second time, I just agreed one weekend I was going to try this, and I did. And something amazing happened inside my mind. I can't even explain it. It was the best way I can actually describe it is waking up from being awake. So if you can imagine the difference between being asleep at night and that junction to waking up in the morning from being fast asleep or dreaming, and then suddenly you're awake and you kind of know what's going on, just that contrast from being what I thought was awake to really being awake, and a whole new level of life and functioning and thinking and consciousness and awareness and breadth of understanding of things and ability to focus. It was like, for the first time in my life, I really felt alive, and I felt like just ridiculously alive. I felt so happy and unbounded, and so much energy. And it's actually been like that now, I don't know, nearly 30, maybe over 30 years since I started doing these things. Suffice it to say, I ended up writing the same actuarial exams the next year in April, nailed them both. These are the international exams. The next September, nailed the next 2. And the following year, I took all 6 final exams. It had never been done before to pass all of those exams at the same time, and I became a fully qualified actuary in 2 years. I was the top actuarial honors student in the country. I went to Wits to go get my results, and my professor said to me, "How did an idiot become an actuary?" That was miracle number 2 for me, because it again affirmed what I'd seen with my mother, that maybe not everything is what we think it seems to be. And how had she overcome a disease that only 1% of people who get stage 4 liver cancer survive from? So I started to learn about this amazing word, enlightenment. We've all heard this word all of our lives, but it hasn't really meant anything. What is enlightenment? So just to break it up, it's just really being in light. And what does it mean to be in light? And I think I had an experience of what being in light started to mean, that it's really something about full human potential. It's about waking up from being awake. It's about being in what people call the flow or the zone, where life just flows, like in an incredible state of ease, simplicity, just beyond your wildest dreams. Like things just happen, they manifest, just completely natural flow of life. And for the last 25 years or so, I've been doing a lot of research into what enlightenment is, what are higher states of human consciousness, and what is the human brain capable of if it could become kind of more superfluid, as it were, in terms of the kind of peak experiences one can have in life. And by the way, this stuff can now be measured in laboratories, and this is extremely exciting, and I think it's a whole new frontier in education. So when we think about education, how we all went through education, it was all about the intellect. It was all about content, stuff you learned, going to write exams, and that was pretty much it. It didn't matter whether your body was healthy or not. It didn't matter, what's going on in your mind, your senses, your feelings, your ego, if you feel crushed, if you feel happy, it's all irrelevant. So there's all these layers to a human being that are way more than just the intellect, which has really been the food of education for hundreds of years. So for me, what I started to think a lot more about is how do you actually educate a whole person if you really want to achieve game-changing results. And to do that, when we're thinking about a whole person, then we have to think about how do we create a healthy body, healthy mind, and how do we develop consciousness to infinity. Just like the universe is infinite, actually our consciousness is infinite, and one can have this very real experience of a state of total unboundedness in the mind while still being able to focus in very, very acute ways on anything you want to focus on. And it's interesting, for example, when one thinks about the body, how important it is. And when you're talking about total human potential, it's vital that we keep this thing healthy. And COVID's a great reminder of that. But it's interesting, some research that came out of both Yale and Oxford University about 2 years ago. They studied a huge number of people and published the study which showed that people that exercise a certain amount or more were actually happier by a significant margin than people who were extremely wealthy but who weren't actually exercising. So, it's an amazing thought that just being physically healthy can make you more happy than being rich. And so after experiencing these two, kind of game-changing things in my life, I was now a young actuary. My salary had gone up to over R1 million a year, virtually overnight, and I was able to do whatever I wanted to do, travel where I wanted, and live the life that I always dreamed of living. I was going to go off to the States and go and work there in New York. I organized everything. I packed up all my boxes, my entire life, 43 boxes of stuff, put it in my mom's cellar, bought my air ticket, ready to get on the plane and go. And then 2 weeks away from leaving the country, just stayed up all night, had a real epiphany that that's not what I wanted to do with my life, run away from South Africa. It's the easy thing to do. It's the easy choice. I wanted to actually see if I could make a real difference in the country, like so many of us want to do in this country. We all love South Africa. We've grown up here. It's in our blood. It's in our bones. We all know this is the greatest country in the world. How are we actually going to get it there? And so I thought, could any of the stuff that I've now been learning about human potential be useful to help other kids with? And that started a whole new amazing journey, deciding not to immigrate. And I would recommend to any of you, if you ever have that choice, just try to take the other decision and see where your life will lead. It's been absolutely amazing. So decided to stay in South Africa, and with a small group of friends, social entrepreneurs, we decided to start a radical new university in South Africa. It was first called CEDA. Later on, it's now been called the Maharishi Institute, Maharishi Invincibility Institute. And what we really have been trying to do in one picture is saying, could we develop the potential of that little guy on the right there coming out of the school system? Here's the economy getting tougher and tougher year by year, more and more like challenges in getting in there, and yet schools just kind of flatlining. Kids are coming out really not prepared for a modern economy. How do we grow giants out of those little guys there and help people get to the top of these cliffs and become the people that they really want to be with their lives? And is it actually even possible? Because a lot of people would say it isn't possible. That's what we set out to prove. And so to do that, we went out and we found students who really can't get into any type of traditional university. So we said, could we take kids from really the roughest kind of situations? Here you see on this chart here, tracking young people coming in to our institution between grade 1 to grade 12. All of these students have passed grade 12. They actually have a grade 12 qualification. But are they really grade 12 level in English and maths? And what you see here is actually about 94% of them are really primary school level, even though they've passed through high school. So in maths and English, all the foundational skills, matric actually means nothing. And then not only are these young people struggling without money, they can't get into traditional, certainly can't get into private institutions, and most of them are not able to get into even like the NSFAS type qualifications that are funded by government. But they're also suffering from tremendous post-traumatic stress disorder, chronic depression, a number of other challenges that they're dealing with on a day-by-day basis. And obviously, things like PTSD is not an issue only for certain people. It's a big issue in our society, actually, where research done by the World Health Organization and Columbia University about 3 years ago, it came out, tracked students in 8 countries, going to the best universities in those 8 countries, some of the wealthiest countries in the world. And they found that over 30% of freshman students starting in first year are suffering from some kind of mental disorder coming into university. And that's kind of like the best that society's got to offer. So you can just imagine when you're really drawing in students from very marginalized backgrounds, the type of challenges that they're dealing with. And those are exactly the kind of students we go look for. And then we put them through a very, very different type of educational process. And this is what a day looks like in the life of a student at the Maharishi Invincibility Institute. We start every day with meditation. In fact, we start with yoga exercises, then breathing exercises, then meditation, then rest. Imagine running to university, rushing from Soweto every day or wherever you come from, Orange Farm or something like that, only to lie down and rest. It kind of seems like the opposite of what you would want to do. But the results are completely and utterly game-changing. And we use a lot of technology in how we teach, but it's all about developing great human beings from the inside out and starting that journey of transformation to greatness for each of these individuals. We're now in Joburg there. We have 2 buildings in the city. We're in Durban, we're in Cape Town. We have a nature reserve campus. And actually, thanks to the partnership as well with Singularity, some amazing things have happened. And we're opening now in the next month or 2 in Brazil. We're starting in actually next week in Zimbabwe. And we're also hoping to start a major university campus in Zambia. And all kinds of exciting other opportunities for expansion are opening up for our institution. But I'd mentioned, for example, post-traumatic stress disorder. This is a published study that came out 2 years ago in Psychology Reports, a global journal out of the UK, and it tracks students of ours at the Maharishi Institute compared to students at one of the biggest universities in South Africa who's studying psychology or business in the traditional way. And as you can see here, our students become non-symptomatic within 2 months, and that's, in fact, every single student came off, according to the study, came off the PTSD and chronic depression scale, whereas at a traditional university, even after a year of just studying from books, those students have not reduced in depression levels at all or PTSD. So that is very, very exciting. Now, does that make a difference to academic results? And what we find is it makes a massive difference. And we've now been able to take 22,000 young people off the streets. Over 19,000 of them have successfully made it through university when they didn't have university entrance pass. And many of them, in fact, didn't even have diploma or certificate pass. 70% of them women. That's over 19,000 individuals working, earning over 1.5 billion rand now in combined income. We estimate they'll earn over 41.9 billion in their working careers and supporting over 150,000 family members between them. So for us, and actually for me, that's not just miracle 1 and 2, that's now miracle 19,000. I've seen over 19,000 times that People who otherwise we would classify as losers in our society, in fact, can become the greatest winners and the most successful people in South Africa. And they're everywhere across our economy, and so many thousands of them now are millionaires, are extremely successful, and have really achieved with their lives the goals that they've always wanted for themselves. Now, our target is to prove this 100,000 times in the near term, and through opening up more campuses and helping more youth, we think we could ultimately put R1 trillion in lifetime earnings into the hands of these families through educating 100,000 people and getting them into quality jobs, in scarce jobs, whether it's in cybersecurity, banking, or fintech, or it could be in areas like the green economy, etc. There's so many areas where we think there are jobs that are growing and real opportunities to develop people and that can pay well. Now, why is this also important? And in fact, just last week, Cerebras just brought out their latest chip. This is an AI chip with over 120 trillion things that it can, calculations that it can be doing at the same time. It's the largest AI chip better. It's brain scale now. And really what we see is that now human beings, very smart human beings, have developed chips that are as clever or more clever in terms of doing many, many different kinds of calculations or functions than any human brain in the world is going to be able to do. So we have to really think, how should we be developing human beings to really utilize what human beings are great at? So we shouldn't be training human beings to become robots. Robots will always be better. AI will always be better at being AI than we ever will. What we have to really do is develop and evolve humanity and develop the human side of individuals. And to do that in our educational approach, we think about flipping Maslow's hierarchy. So instead of starting with all these things at the bottom end of safety and security and food and shelter, and then maybe later in your life when you're 65, 70 years old, you think about life purpose, why am I here? Kind of crazy. Why don't we start with that? And this is what we've been working to do. Let's start students on why they're alive, what is their life purpose, what could they be, and then everything else starts to unfold at an unprecedented rate and have a completely different future. And as I was saying earlier, we have to move from content. Content is like, just Google the stuff in 5 seconds. Even skills, AI can take over just most of these skills, including programming or solving any kind of model or anything like that. Really higher order human intelligence, that's what we should be going towards. And that is things like higher order competencies, meta-learning, metacognition. Even that is not enough. Human mastery. And that is, I believe, the cutting edge of education, is how does the human mind transcend all of these boundaries we know and really learn to function from this level of higher states of consciousness, fully awake, enlightened state of mind, a completely different level of mastery and life and ease and success and ability to solve anything. And these are the kinds of young ninjas and superheroes we should be developing in education today. Great quote from St. Augustine. You can just read it quickly. But really what it says, this quote, is we spend all of our time learning about the world outside of us and virtually no time learning about the incredible world on the inside of the human mind, this incredible field of consciousness that the brain is capable of experiencing. And by the way, that is one thing that I think no human chip will ever be able to experience, is infinite unboundedness of pure consciousness in the mind. And this is a beautiful study done in something called the Blue Zones. Nicoya Peninsula is one of these 5 places in the world where men, who usually live shorter than women, routinely live to more than 100. And if you see the reasons why, what is in common in all of these places, these individuals have got life purpose, they're moderate in terms of how they eat and how they, for example, take substances like alcohol or anything else. They do have regular physical activity, they eat a plant-based diet, and they really engage and connect with others, with their families, and this gives them meaning and spiritual meaning as well. And this we see is if we really develop the human brain properly, which it's capable of, then we can start to create a whole new type of leader and individual who's going to be exponentially more successful and able to keep up with the incredible and extraordinary advances in human technology now. This is a brain on meditation over 15 years, and it's really beautiful to see over time how this individual's brain starts to develop more and more on these different frequencies, starting with first the alpha frequency and then theta, beta and delta frequencies, and the whole brain starting to wake up. And this is really on a machine showing you how the human brain can start to wake up to these higher states of consciousness. Does this make a difference academically? Does it make a difference in individuals' lives? And the answer is hell yeah. And this is very, very exciting. In the red there is one of the most respected universities in the world. Students come in as geniuses. They come out the other end as geniuses, but there's no real change in IQ, cognitive functioning, etc. And here's a Maharishi University where students are going up between 9 to 14 points in IQ over a 5-year period. Now that's exciting. It is so exciting if we can take people, anybody, and help them develop their potential to a much greater degree. So I'm going to conclude. I'm going to talk about the human body. If we want the body to be healthy, we've spoken about exercise. Sleep is absolutely critical. Try sleep in a dark, dark room. Try and make sure you do everything possible to invest in your sleeping, to maximize the quality of your sleep. But what you put, the fuel you put into your body, completely critical. It's going to make a major difference. And there's tons of research on this. And not just a difference to you, it's going to make a difference to the whole planet as well. And this is a great, great study coming out of Oxford that showed that if all people worldwide were to stop eating meat, we would actually reduce greenhouse gases and global warming by over 70%. A really far-reaching study. And this study came out about 2 weeks ago. It's talking about the methane gas produced by cows and cattle farming, and just saying if we continue the way we are, we will face climate catastrophe unless we can radically reduce methane gas emissions. So how we eat and changing our diet, absolutely fundamental, not just for ourselves, but for the future of our planet. So we all want fulfillment. We want to achieve extraordinary things with our lives. There's not a single one of us, not anywhere, who doesn't want that. If we want to achieve great things, we have to take action, because these things are not just going to happen. But if we're going to take action, that action's got to be on the basis of our thinking. And how are we going to develop powerful thinking? And it's very, very important that we do start to properly develop thinking at a very deep level in young people so that they can start to fundamentally change the course of their actions and their achievements. And to do this, we've got to develop these deeper layers of the mind. These are not things we have to add from the outside. These are things that are already there. And we just have to go inside, develop what is there. All these mechanisms, tools exist. They're so scientifically validated. They're so reliable. And really, life can be so much better in every way. And I'm going to close there and thank you for this incredible opportunity to be part of Singularity University once again. Such a remarkable organization, and the team in South Africa doing such incredible work. And I just want to finish reminding us of that incredible Einstein quote, that every second of every day, each of us has to make this decision. Everything's a miracle, or nothing is a miracle. And it's our choice. Thank you very much.